Good evening,
Sorry.
everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock and ask that the city clerk read the statement of compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the annual meeting notice advertised in the Trenton Times on January 10, 2024. Notice of this meeting was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall and sent to various individuals on the listserv, department heads, and the city engineer. The meeting agenda includes action items known at the time of publication and is subject to change. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live using the Zoom meeting platform. Roll call.
Yes, please.
Councilwoman Kaminsky.
Here.
Councilman Lyde.
Here.
Councilman Stegman.
Here.
Council President Lambert.
Here.
Mayor Noack.
Here. We'll rise for the pledge of allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for all of those suffering the great humanitarian crisis that's happening in Gaza. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all here. We'll begin this meeting with our first public participation. We do every meeting, we have two public participation periods, one at the beginning and one at the end. If you'd like to speak, we ask you, unless you have mobility issues, to step to the podium here, state your name and address. You have 3 uninterrupted minutes for questions or remarks. Lindsay is denying the time for us. Thank you. Is there anybody here who would like to?
Judy Gleason, 86 North Union Street. I just was so pleased to see in the agenda that you all are addressing the parking situation on behalf of the merchants in town during this bridge construction, and it was, I thought, fabulous news, great stuff, and you hear me often pointing to things here and there, but I wanted to point to this in person because I just think you've done a great thing by working with this issue and trying to make it better for our town during the period, so.
Paul Stevens, 3940. I would just encourage you to give a little background when we get into the first reading of the fire ordinance, fire code ordinance. Trying to understand what the motivation is for this, breaking it out of the city and putting responsibility for the safety of the city ultimately in fire district. And yeah, I just like to really hear more. Sometimes on these first readings, we don't get a lot of understanding of what's motivating some of these things. And by the time it gets to the public, the open part of the second reading, it might be a little bit too late for us to really fully grasp things and be able to provide valuable feedback. Thank you.
Five Brunswick Avenue, that's okay, I'll stay on. I also question, I know we've been, the mayor's been talking about some relationship between the city and the fire district to do something. Right, this is reading it now, it's a big something, right? There's some real major potential impacts with a lot of questions that I think need to get answered before you head forward quickly. All right, because if we're having trouble, it seems like there's been issues with getting a fire district person. All right, there are other options, all right, that need to be investigated as part of it. All right, one that apparently a lot of municipalities have used in the state is to have the state come in. That's their job. They're the experts. All right, and my understanding is that they just take it and they run with it. All right, and that's their job, that they're the professionals in that particular, that particular piece of it. All right, certainly our firefighters are expert at firefighting. We hope, and I just think we need to go slowly on this and make sure this is really what we're looking for. As a city and taxpayer, because, you know, whether we pay taxes through the city, or if we end up paying more taxes through through the fire district. All right, you know, it's still an impact on us that, that are now on fixed incomes. All right, and speaking of fixed incomes. All right, I see there's a motion or an action under consideration to exceed the 2.5% allowed increase to take it up to 3.5. I would hope that, as we all do in our personal lives, all right, is consider, cutting the budget, cutting the taxes, all right, rather than looking for more money. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
Jennifer Syrek, Director of the Lambertville Library. I just wanted to say thank you so much for honoring the library during National Library Week is next week. And we are so pleased to be honored as a finalist by the Institute of Museum and Library Services for their national medal during this exciting time for the library. And I would just like to say that the title is an honor for the library, but it's really also should be celebrated by you all because you all are part of it. And all of our community members in Lambertville that support and volunteer and use the library are also a part of this wonderful finalist honor. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something in Spanish. I'm Trina Barbusco, and I also work at the Lambertville Library. I just wanted to translate this into Spanish. De parte de la Biblioteca de Lambertville, le damos las gracias a toda la comunidad, especialmente las personas que han sido voluntariados, que han ayudado en el Festival de Oaxaca, que han participado en el programa Latinas en Lambertville, y bueno, están siempre bienvenidos a la biblioteca y es un gran honor para nosotros y espero que para ustedes también. Y estamos haciendo el programa de Latinas en Lambertville, empieza el próximo miércoles, puede venir quien quiera, no tienen que registrarse, simplemente vengan a la biblioteca, tenemos cuidado para los niños también, a cuidar ellos y están todos bienvenidos. Aprender, avanzar y soñar se llama. Just letting everybody know that next week, on Wednesday, we start the Latinas in the Lambertville program that was the engine behind the Oaxaca Fest. That all Latinas are invited with their children because we have activities for the children as well. And the project is called Learn, Advance, and Dream. That's the name of the 10-week course. Quiero decir, son 10 semanas. Me llamo Trina. Me pueden llamar. My name is Trina. You can always find me at the library to speak about the Hispanic programming. Thank you.
I would just like to give this to you for the first part of what Jen said. I don't know if you're microphone.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Would you just note what that was?
Yes, it's just information about the 2024 National Medal for Museum and Library Service.
Thank you.
It shows Lambertville listed on it along with the other people. So it's nice to see us listed with Georgia, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, Texas. So it really is a national event, which is nice.
Anyone else in the room? Is there anyone online? Okay, how many people are online?
5.
Okay, I have a motion to close the public comment period, please.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we hear from Evan?
Aye.
I mean, Councilman Live, excuse me. All right, does anybody on the council have any, thing they'd like to say in response to any of those questions or comments?
I'd just like to congratulate the library you know, it's such a great honor and, you know, proud to do a little part of it and, we hope to see the medal on display.
On the newly painted library.
I second the congratulations. It's a great library. You're like this little gem in the community. You're kind of tucked away in there and you just do amazing work. Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, congratulations, and it just shows, like, once again, I think those are your usual seats in the back. But once again, how we're sharing how important the library is with the entire country here, and to be recognized in that group is quite an honor, and congratulations. Makes Lambertville another reason why we're also proud of living in this city because of your work. So thanks so much.
Councilman Light, do you have anything to add or anything, comments about?
Just obviously congratulations to the library and all the volunteers that helped us achieve this great honor.
Thank you. Yeah, I join everybody on the dais in congratulating you and being just so thrilled for all of your work and recognition. Thank you. And as to the other comments or questions, those will be addressed as we're kind of working through the various topics. So thank you for that. All right, I would like to take a moment to note that we did not take action on paying bills at the March 21st session. So I'm just going to ask for motion to approve the March 21st, 2024 bills list.
So moved.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, proclamation. It's National Library Week, April 17th through the 13th. So I would like to adopt a proclamation honoring the library and proclaim April 7th through the 13th as Library Week in the city. I'm going to read this proclamation. Whereas the library has been a treasured institution enjoyed by the residents of our community and beyond since the formation of the Stryker Library Association of Lambertville in 1881. And whereas the library was approved by referendum in November 1925 and in January of 1926 to open as a Lambertville Free Public Library. And whereas the Lambertville Free Public Library offers the opportunity for people of all ages to connect with others, learn new skills, obtain information, and pursue their passions no matter where they are on life's journey. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions striving to ensure equitable access to information and services for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, developing and expanding collections, programs, and services that are as diverse as the populations they serve. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, addressing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries play a pivotal role in economic development by providing resources and support for job seekers, entrepreneurs, and small businesses, thus contributing to local prosperity and growth. And whereas libraries are essential public good and are an essential public good and fundamental in democratic societies, protecting the right to education and literacy, and promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas the Lambertville Free Public Library has been named a finalist for the 2024 National Medal for the Museum and Library Service in recognition of its demonstrated excellence in service to the Lambertville community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the governing body of the city of Lambertville and the county of Hunterdon in the state of New Jersey, the city hereby congratulates the Lambertville Free Public Library and staff on a job well done. And be it resolved that April 7th through the 13th, 2024 is hereby proclaimed Library Week in the city of Lambertville. And be it further resolved that all residents visit the Lambertville Free Public Library and celebrate the adventure and opportunities they unlock for us every day. Ready, set, library. All right, may I have a motion to adopt the proclamation, please?
so moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you very much. All right, moving on to resolutions. We have a resolution number 66-2024. This is a resolution to authorize the suspension of the Lambertville City Code 2014, Chapter 8, municipal parking areas and metered parking, sections 8 through 15, parking meters, beginning Friday, May 3rd, 2024, and ending May 5th, 2024. So as Judy noted, this is in response to request from the business community in the greater area Chamber of Commerce to suspend the meters for certain weekdays to assist businesses with the bridge closure. So I think this is a great opportunity for the city. I think it's hopefully it'll be a good weekend for the businesses. It's something that we're going to consider doing several times a year, I think. And as we move forward with that, I just want to note a couple of practical matters about this. So logistically, it's a fairly big thing to shut the meters down for a weekend. We've got to have somebody physically bag all the meters, 337 at the moment. So there's a little bit of extra time that gets associated with that in terms of payroll and also collecting the bags at the end of the weekend. And I would also note that the bags themselves are going to cost about $600 with the stickers. So in addition to the meter revenue that's lost, we have some additional expenses. Just wanted to highlight those as part of the record. I don't know if there are any comments from the council on this, on thoughts that you'd like to share.
No, I'm glad we're doing this to support our business community.
I think it's a great way to show how much we cherish and support the businesses that call Lambertville home. So thank you, council and mayor and council,
Sure.
for responding in the way we are.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, I would ask for motion to adopt resolution number 66-2024 to suspend the meters from Friday, May 3rd through Sunday, May 5th.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Councilman Lloyd, did you say aye? Councilman?
I said aye, sorry. Might have been delayed.
All right. Right, we're gonna go to ordinances first reading. This is ordinance number 7-2024. It's an ordinance for the city of Lambertville, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing the Lambertville City Code 2014, Chapter 11, Fire Prevention, Article 1, Uniform Fire Safety Standards to establish a designated local agency, enforcing agency responsible for the enforcement of the New Jersey Uniform Fire Code. Lots of words in that. So we've been talking about this a little bit off and on, or actually quite a bit, I think, over the last several months. I've had a number of concerns with the way the city has overseen its program dating back to certainly the beginning of my mayorship. And I would just note that in the summer of 2022, and I have a document here, the state came in and did an audit. They took 18 different businesses here in Lambertville and found violations going back decades. And so, you know, at that time, before I was the mayor, we had a joint zoning officer, fire official, and that was an 8-hour job. So it's no wonder that the program wasn't entirely successful when you've got somebody who's just doing it for 4 hours a week, or possibly a little bit more. So I've had concerns since I started this. Since I've started being the mayor with this program. We hired somebody to come in 16 hours a week and continue to have a number of struggles throughout the 2 years that that person served as a fire official. We have about 60 life hazard uses in the city and maybe upwards of 300-400 regular hazard uses. So, you know, I've been really concerned that the city has not been able to oversee this program effectively. Some of that obviously falls on me, and you know, it's complicated, right? So, you know, these fire officials who are employed by the city, similar to the construction code official or other officials who have jurisdictional authority over things, you know, it's hard for me to understand kind of the technical aspects of their job. All I can do is kind of manage their time and kind of look at the situation, HR position. So, you know, this was more than, honestly, this was more than the city or I could handle over the last several years. And given the repeated involvement with the state, coming in again and again, I've got several documents, letters here from the state, concerned about, how the program is being managed. I began to have conversations, about turning it over to, to the fire commission. So just to review, here in New Jersey, there are three options for your program. Either as we've had in the past, you have an employee who's the fire official who does the work. You have the state come in and they will do all of it, or you can designate a local enforcement agency. So we've had the employee, and I really think that it's been wildly unsuccessful to do it that way. And it put a lot of strain on me in my role, stress, because we just not been able to do it effectively. So I've been very, it's been difficult. And so, when we're talking with the state, or talking with the fire commission, it seemed to me that given the number of certified fire inspectors they have at the commission in the firehouse, that would be a good plan to start to look at how this could possibly transfer over to them. So we hired the fire official back in the fall as kind of an interim fire official. It was hired specifically as an interim with the goal for moving this over to the fire commission. And that's where we are in terms of the practical application of this. We've also discussed this in one of the meetings. I've got a chart here that kind of shows what we've taken in revenues versus offset expenses and that kind of thing. And it really has varied dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. And that's just because we've had a lack of consistency in terms of enforcement, in terms of inspections. So since we've hired the fire official in a 16-hour position, we've still had conversations with the state. They're still happy with the level of, with the low numbers. So we, the last council meeting, we approved the interim appointment of a second person to get us through this period. We're not getting our first quarter rebates from the state. It's so far behind. So, this program just has not been effective. And while I understand that it could be effective in certain situations and is in certain municipalities, I honestly don't think that the city has the bandwidth to oversee another employee, one who has this kind of magnitude of responsibilities. When we're talking about, upwards of 450 inspections a year, that's a lot. So, this is where I am on this. I had a meeting today with Chief Barlow and Commissioner Nate over at the firehouse. We talked about what a relationship could look like. I think the city should be involved. I told the chief about that we should be, if we move forward with this, which the date would be July 1st. That we would want the reports. We would be very engaged with understanding how the program is working. In terms of the rollout of the program itself, that's really up to the firehouse. They would be rolling out the program in a way that they think is best. So we currently use SDL. They would probably use SDL as well. They would hire somebody independently to manage all of the inspection, scheduling, and all of that kind of thing. And they would handle all the finances. So the city would basically be completely removed from the process, except that they'd be our lead agency. So that's where we are. That explains enough of it to everybody to get us going. Are there any comments or questions from the council before I ask for motion?
So is the problem, or was the problem, that there was so much work to do that we could not afford to hire a resource to cover all of the work?
Well, so we hired someone 16 hours a week, and I have to be careful here about talking about this position. We've had some conversations about this as individuals, but all I'm going to say is that the last 2 years were very ineffective in terms of inspections. I don't remember what the actual number is, but it was very low. We didn't meet all of our life. We were required by the state at a minimum to do the life safety hazards every year. And so over the last couple of years, we did not come close to inspecting all of the, to meeting all of those requirements. So I can't speak too specifically about all of this, except to say that, you know, there are 40-something employees in the city, and there's a lot of part-time people. Everybody works really hard, but in terms of managing, it's complicated. It's very complicated when we don't have an HR department. And when people have jurisdictional abilities that are, I can't go into people's lanes. I do not have the ability to challenge someone, whether it's the construction code official or the fire official. All I can do is kind of handle what are routine HR matters. And even then, that's a challenge because it just is.
And when we did go out and look for a person, the problem is that we only want part-time, and people that are doing this work full-time. So if they're applying for this job, then they're doing it late at night, or they're doing it on a Saturday and Sunday. So we had very little response to our advertisements.
That's a good point. I would also say that because there are so many people in the fire department who are certified fire inspectors, you know, they have people. And they have a lot more flexibility in terms of scheduling. 16 hours a week, you know, we got into a rhythm where we try to do inspections on one day and kind of administrative work on the other day. It's not always possible to do inspections one day a week when you've got houses being sold, and you know, there needs to be some flexibility in terms of inspections and customer service, quite frankly.
Right, and then there's deadlines with the state too, like the schools have to be done before, I want to say June 30th. And so when, and the school doesn't want you there to run a test when the kids are in their classroom. So you've got to try and manage all of that, and somebody's working part-time just can't do it.
So, do we know how many hours approximately, monthly on average, like this person would have been required to do work? Do we have anything that tells us the number of hours the resource should have worked?
I'll tell you why we don't, because some of this is, I'm selling my house, I need a fire smoke certification. So that's part of this. And they're quick, but then when you have to do inspections on the life hazard, that takes up more time. And it depends on where you're going, because if you're going to a bigger building, it's a bigger inspection. So it's really difficult. We've never managed this well. And because we have not, it's been underfunded. I don't think we have a good sense of how much each particular, or even how many we have in each category to know what it really would require.
Yeah, can I just build off that a little bit? We did get some information from the state back in July of 2022 about the time they submitted the audit to us with rough numbers, and we did talk about was 16 hours a week enough to cover this. And you know, reading from this, and these are rough numbers, and I don't know that they're. One other thing I'll say before I say this is that one of the issues that's been taking so much resources is we have literally hundreds of businesses that have never been inspected. That's not an exaggeration. There are small businesses all over town that have not been inspected. There are businesses that have not been inspected properly or sufficiently. And what's happening is that the fire official is spending a great deal of time in some of these businesses explaining all of the violations, right? So, you know, when the fire official took over, I'm just going to be honest here. City Hall was inspected, and we got 5 pages of violations, right? So that's on me. I should have been asking these questions 2 years ago. But it's emblematic of what's going on in the city in terms of people understanding what the laws are and what compliance means. So you know, the fire official is spending an inordinate number of hours just getting people, and this is really hard to do, to go into a business and say, you know, I know, you know, when was the last time you were inspected, and they either don't know or whatever, right? And the fire official finds 5 or 10 or 12 things, and one of them is going to cost like $20,000 to put a new hood in or something, right? These are shocking, difficult conversations. And so, you know, I would credit the fire official that we've hired as the interim, who will also be kind of running the program if it's transferred over, with showing a lot of tact and sensitivity and building relationships that, that take time now. And also are in for the long haul, right? You know, I think that all these relationships that we have with our professionals are important. And if somebody is able to call the same person year after year, and there's a relationship there, and there's expectations and all of that. That's critical. And I was here, I held a meeting with the fire official for businesses in the community. I don't know, was it a month, 5 weeks ago? And we had maybe 30 people in here, and there were a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. And you know, to his credit, it's a tough job. Walking into the city, given the circumstances in which we asked somebody to start, was very unpleasant, to tell you the truth. So there's that. So back in 2022, the state counted about 60 life hazards uses. Those are the ones that are required to be done every year. So these are just round numbers. I don't have the actual numbers, and they suggested that there were at least 200 or 300 others that they had in the system at that time. They also did the smoke compliance inspections, you know, at least 70 a year. So, you know, and then dealing with the complaint calls and fire investigations and all of that as well added to adds to that number. So when we were talking with the state back in summer of 2022, you know, they put 16 hours, 8 hours of which are administrative, which is leaves 1 day to do inspections, times 52 weeks in a year, 52 days to complete roughly 400 inspections. Is that enough? I don't know. It doesn't seem like it might not be, right? Especially if you run into issues with individual businesses.
But that number came from the state.
Yes, yeah, based on kind of historical.
Yeah, we have to file a
Based on our
report.
backlog, Based on our backlog.
Well, we have to file a report annually, not we, the fire official. He has to, and that person, she has to file how many they did. But when people register, that information goes on to the states. It used to be the RIMS. I don't know what the new system is called, but so they have all of our information, and that's how they can track what we actually do every year. It's a report that's submitted.
I feel strongly that this is an important step in terms of ensuring compliance with state regulation, safety. I feel very strongly about that. I think that we have to work with the fire commission, trust the fire commission. It's an independent authority. It's got a commission. All its reporting is public. I'm happy to work with them. I think that there's compelling reason here to give this a try. That said, I'll go on the record as saying we'll give it a year. If it looks like it's not a good relationship, it's not working, you know, I will say that it's not working, and we will do something different.
Well, we only have 3 options, right?
Correct.
And we tried one, and it was challenging, and it sounds like it would continue to be challenging based on the fact that it's only part-time. What about the state? Did you look at that as an option at this point?
You know, I didn't, and the reason why is, one, I think the fire commission was interested in doing it. It does bring potential added revenue into the fire department. You know, so it's you know, there's no doubt that historically this has been a revenue source. I would argue that when you look at the numbers for the last 5 or 6 years, you know, the revenue source, sure, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, isn't sufficiently large for the amount of difficulty this has caused in terms of process. So, you know, I'm happy to pick up all those numbers for anybody who wants them, but you know, there is potential for revenue. If the system is working well and it's run efficiently, you know, there's an upside to it, right? And so if the commission can do this efficiently and effectively, and you know, add some revenue, you know, I'm not going to say that that's potentially going to lower the tax bill for the fire department, but you know, there is a revenue possibility here, right? Just because we've broken even doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, if we're not running an effective, efficient operation, and we break even, that's, you know, that's, I don't know.
I'll let others ask. I have a few more questions, but I'll let others jump in if they have anything. Otherwise, I'll keep talking.
Any other questions from the council or thoughts?
I'm just concerned about, not having any oversight in this plan. And I do recognize, however, that there's more than part-time work here. To do. My interaction with the fire inspector is very limited to what they do when houses transfer. They come in and do their inspections to make sure that there's adequate safety gets taken care of at the time of property transfer. That's my only real connection with it. It, you know, the option is if we want to keep oversight, then it doesn't seem that this is a part-time position anymore. Given the backlog that is currently in front of us or discovered by the mayor in his research, I'm concerned about losing oversight. And the ordinance doesn't talk about the nuts and bolts of how the commission is going to go forward and schedule and handle this. And that's just one of my concerns going forward. I know should we entertain a full-time person? Is there enough for a full-time person to go out there and generate monies coming in more than we have in the past? Seeing that there are so many yet to be inspected buildings that are and that haven't been done in years are a concern as well. But I don't know if turning this over to another agency is, where we want to go with this one particular position. So I think Cindy's point is well taken. A part-time person can't do this. If they're flexible enough to be able to accomplish what they need to accomplish in 18 hours a month. Yeah, so whether the city wants to make a commitment on a city level to have somebody full-time and try that, see if that works and is able to produce and fill 35 hours a week, is another question that we haven't explored, whether that would be a way to test this with a different system going in rather than just handing it over to a fire commission. So that's kind of what I'm wrestling with here.
Give it that signal. With this being stuff, but of course that we should have some oversight, you talked about this, I would prefer it to be written in the ordinance that maybe we participate, have an overall committee over, or something, or something that we would still have a hand in it. But that being said, maybe if we could do something, as you've had an initial discussion with the fire commission about having a July 1st next year, whatever, 2025, review, well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the year review, and we maybe formalize that with somehow that we're gonna take a look at it again and it'd be really interesting to see, the numbers and finances and things, have a full kind of review, that was, available to the public. I know sometimes, there's just a delay in information getting to websites and things or whatever, so the public doesn't have to follow, 2 different meetings to be following what's going on with an agency that, will have impact on the business community as well as everyone here, so maybe if we could do that, it would be a step towards some of the things we're talking about here.
and allow us to at least introduce the ordinance, have a public hearing on the ordinance or whatever, but. I'm just trying to find a way to do something to move ahead with something that we've started, but that we would like to keep maybe a tighter rein on than when we first started talking about this. Quite honestly, because when we first started talking about it, I will admit, that I was following it, but I didn't realize that we had to flip the agency completely. So my bad in not like understanding that process of flipping the agency and because I do prefer having the city be involved, since there are folks that there are constituents, and I think naturally our constituents are gonna come here first to air any grievances or problems. They're gonna be knocking on Crystal's door, so we're gonna have to I think work hand in hand with them, but maybe if we could do a separate letter agreement with them. Throw that out there. I don't know if Bill is on
He's not.
he's not,
Yeah.
but we could run that by our city attorney and do that, bring it together.
Councilman Lai, did you have anything to add or any questions?
Just a comment that I agree with, the sentiment that others have expressed that the past couple of years, this has been a very unsuccessful program. And I think we need to look for a solution. This may be the solution. I think that a lot of the points that people brought up are really good points, especially, if we are going to, seed some of this, we still do want to have some oversight. And I do agree that having, if we do go forward with this program, having a review in a year formalized as part of that makes a lot of sense. So.
Thank you.
Is there something in the ordinance now, I didn't notice it, that says we're gonna review this in a year, or do we? Yeah, so maybe can we incorporate that? Is that done, or?
It's so the way I would suggest proceeding would be to introduce the ordinance tonight. Cindy, if we wanted to push back a public hearing on this to the middle of May, could we do that?
We could, you just carry it to the next meeting.
So
Yeah.
what I would suggest that we do, so that we don't lose steam, because it's the deadlines here they're creeping up on us. Everything has to be reviewed by the state, and there's the fire commission. The commission has to do a number of things at the commission level that have to be reviewed by the state. So I don't want to say we're bumping up against the deadline, but we need to be mindful of time as we do this process. First of all, in regards to oversight, I think it's important to be careful about the word oversight and what that means. I'm not sure that we would have the authority to have oversight. I think
We don't now. We don't now.
Right.
They report directly to the state.
But that could be a key driver as to why it was unsuccessful, right? Because there was none.
We're not going to be allowed to have oversight. It would be like me saying I would have oversight over Ken Rogers.
Well,
or
can
Sue.
we ask them to provide us, I know I'm going on about the report plan, but excuse me, but if we know what the backlog is, they should be able to provide us with an estimated number of hours of how much effort is required and how many resources, because it says in here they can hire as many resources as they feel necessary. It would be great if we were part of that conversation and they said, this is who we want to, this is how many we want to hire, and here's the reason why. I mean, is that an unreasonable
Can't do that.
engagement?
We can't do that. We're ceding control over this program to the fire commission.
Whole thing goes to them.
What I'm more than happy to do is to speak to the fire commission and to Chief Barlow and to work out some kind of agreement whereby maybe at the end of the year, maybe we don't wait a whole year. Maybe we ask the fire official to present to the council at a formal meeting, December or November, what happened in 2024, right? Where are we?
You do a 6 month and a year,
Yes.
right?
I'm
But then,
completely fine with
notice,
that.
so.
Yep.
Yeah, but what they'll give us their monthly, you'll receive, but you receive the monthly,
We will-
incident reports
we'll add
blah,
that.
blah, and we will be advised about personnel in there, because you'll see new people if they're coming on.
We
I would.
we could do that as a monthly report as part of the council meeting, right, in the short term. I think that would be fine. And in terms of the revenue, I would just note that the state only sends rebates for the program quarterly. So we wouldn't have revenue numbers until the end of the year. We've already lost our first quarter rebates because we're so far behind. State just is not going to give us any rebates on these life hazard units. So the only thing I want to caution people about is I'm the one talking to the state and they're putting pressure on us. I think that moving back, the idea of moving backward to hiring somebody is going to be extremely, I'm not giving to exaggeration, problematic for the state. We've been in meetings, we were in a meeting not that long ago, and they're still cautious about the progress that we've been making. But they feel that this is that we've not handled it, and this is what it's not just me, it's I think the state thinks that this is the best option other than having the state come in.
And didn't we have to give money back from 2023 because we didn't meet, like they give you money up front and then as you meet your goals, you get more, but we didn't meet what our minimum.
Well, and if I, thank you, Cindy. Well, it's obvious that this is not a part-time position anymore. And you know, when you don't have an employee that is full-time, you're not going to get the results that you want to get. And the question I think in front of us is, do we want to have a full-time employee whose job is to you know be our fire inspector, or do we want to have a full-time employee, but however have it a shared service between us and another municipality, since the fire code is universal throughout the state. And I don't know if we've looked into that possibility.
I don't believe that's a possibility, a shared service agreement. I think one of the second interim fire official has a job with Clinton Township as their fire marshal, I think. So there, you know, but it's not an agreement. I don't know. I'd have to double check, but I'm fairly confident that there's no shared services between municipalities here. Employees can, you know, work in different municipalities, but I don't believe in all the documents I've read, that's not an option.
And that's what we tried to do. We tried to come up with a memorandum of understanding where, you know, their employees, we would do our inspections, and we submitted that to the state. I don't remember the month last year, and that's when the state kicked it back and said, no, they either take the whole thing and are totally responsible for it, you know, or you hire somebody or we take over. The problem is the backlog, and that the very first thing that the fire inspector does is log on to see how we are. When they see that, they're like, "Who, not touching this."
And the other thing I would just say, Councilman, is that it's quite possible that this is a 16-hour-a-week job, right? But until the dust is clear, until all the inspections, until the first year or more is over, right? The fire officials told me it's going to take at least a year to get things to, you know, sort of standard operating procedure. It's quite possible that, you know, it will be a 16-hour-a-week job. And, you know, that's another thing that we have to be mindful of at the city is you hire somebody for 16 or 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week, the same need is there. It's very difficult to sort of pull back on that schedule with that employee. I mean, there are all kinds of HR issues in sort of shifting people around between hours, responsibilities, that kind of thing. So, you know, one of the advantages as I see it is that, you know, the fire department does have all these certified fire inspectors on staff, and, you know, they're at the firehouse, and, you know, they can go out after their shift is over and cover, you know, inspections. They have a lot more flexibility because they have a lot more people, and they're all there a good part of the time. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it's going to be a 20-hour-a-week job. I certainly don't think it's a full-time job. You know, I think, you know, I don't know. And the fire official who's out there every day, doesn't have a good sense of how many hours it's gonna be, you know, in the long term, in terms of maintenance and year-to-year operations, so I couldn't say, but it's certainly not a full-time job.
Well, I'd like to have some information where to prove you're correct. But,
We can't prove I'm correct, because there is no information, they're still working through the backlog. I mean, it's just not there.
Thank you. I'm also concerned that if it's not in here, it's not anywhere. If there's not a written agreement, that we can, you know, if it's not written on the plan, sometimes things just don't get done. And I don't know if we can add that, use this as a basis and add that, you know, in the ordinance about, you know, the relationship that we have with whoever's doing this.
This is what the state sent out, word for word, and I'm a little confused, not confused. It seems to me that this is, oftentimes there's a leap of faith in things, right? Whether you're voting for a new candidate, whether you're trying something new, you know, I think that I would hope that we know our fire commission and our fire department well enough to feel like they could run a program like this, and to give them the opportunity to. I don't see what ceding our authority does here, other than try to solve a problem. I don't need to be the boss of everything. I don't want to be the boss of everything. I think this is worth a try, and if it doesn't work out, then we come back.
But Mayor, I do think in the ordinance where it says the whereas, if you wanted to add in whereas, you know, in the spirit of, I mean, the ordinance really is a safety thing, right? We could add, you know, that we would get a monthly report and maybe a 6-month overview. I think that would be okay.
Sure, but I think that's an agreement that, I mean, if you wanted it, in ordinance, I don't see any reason why it could be there, but you know, when I went out and had my meeting this morning, you know, the first thing I said was, you know, we want to know what's going on with this, right?
Yeah.
This is a new relationship. This would be a new relationship.
Mhm.
It's important to us that not only is the program running well, but that, you know, that you know that we're here for you and we're there for you. That's why I have meetings with the fire official and the public, right? It's not about his job or my job. It's about our joint commitment to program, right? So if we want to put it in the ordinance, I think we can, but
I don't think that changes the flavor of when you actually get into, you know, who has oversight. It just says that they'll give us a report. It's an update.
So, you know, the issue with that is, you know, then we can't introduce this tonight, right? Then
Right.
We could just do it by a separate letter, you know, you say,
Yeah.
send them a letter. And like, we don't have to put it in the ordinance, it solves the problem, that's like what I was driving, yeah, I'm like.
And I'm happy to work with the
Easy way,
council on what that
yeah,
is. I really am.
It's like, you know, so we can introduce it and keep going with the program we have. But we do a separate letter on the reporting, you know, that we want to do.
Mhm.
So be it,
What-
you
what-
know, especially if, you know, they already want to do it, it's good.
So what would the separate letter?
We can talk about this. Let's introduce the ordinance, and I'm happy to have individual conversations about what you think should be in the letter. I'm happy to, you know.
Yeah, I don't have it, like, we're gonna, a 6-month review, and then, and a year we revisit it, you know, and that. We wanna make sure that the program's running, you know, satisfactory for the citizens of the city of it.
We could do it in a council meeting, or we can have a formal public hearing on it.
And the,
Yeah.
I think, if in a year it's not, if in whatever time we choose, it isn't, we're not satisfied with it, then we would have to do another ordinance to undo this ordinance, and what type of bad feelings are generated at that point?
Well, I mean, you could suggest that bad feelings are being generated if we're not trusting the fire department, right? I mean, that may very well be already in play here.
You got to, we would, and if it wasn't performing well, they're, you know, I think nature take.
There's a pretty straightforward metric. That you look at. Is the backlog resolved? Okay, they're about a year's worth of work. Plus all the work that comes in the interim. If the fire company can clean up the backlog. Then. And maintain and keep on track and not create more backlog. Then, I don't know, that seems like a pretty good measure of success. Right, because the issue is. We don't have the bandwidth to address the backlog. That's why we're in so much hot water with the state, right?
Part of it.
Yeah, so. You know, if you give it to a resource that says, yes, we can do this. Then, you know. You review it, say, how you doing with the backlog and how are you doing with the new things coming in? And that's pretty easy. That's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Right? And I guess the other piece of this is, we're as you know, the municipality, we're still on the hook for making sure this stuff is done. On time, correctly, you know, and appropriately. So if we have a resource that's not doing it, we do have the ability to bring it back under our own control. So.
Good point.
Okay.
Right, I don't know, probably wants to.
Evan,
Or Evan White, the spaceship then.
No, I'm in support of introducing it tonight, and I appreciate, the opportunity to talk to you, Mayor, because I do have some more questions about it as well, so.
Okay, so I
I'll
think we're
make
ready.
a motion
Thank you.
To introduce.
Have a second, please.
Second.
All right, all in favor of introducing ordinance number
Seven.
7-2024, please say aye.
Aye.
Right. Did you say aye?
Mm-mm.
Did you say nay? Would you like to vote?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. So the motion carries, one, vote. Next ordinance will be ordinance number 08-2024, the Cap Bank ordinance. This ordinance gives the city the ability to bank the unused portion of funding to the cap. So it's pretty straightforward. So you have anything to add about this?
Yeah, so when you do your budget, you have your numbers, so you can go all the way to the cap. And we did not. And so when you don't, the state says you have the ability to take that money that you didn't use and put it in what's called a cap bank. And you can use it in any of the next, I think it's 2 years in their budgets.
3 years.
3 years.
Could be wrong.
Anyway, I'd have to look at the ordinance. I kind of take different notes. Anyway, I don't, most of the time this isn't used. But it just gives you the ability to use it if you get in the bad year in one of the future budgets. It's not exceeding what we are currently doing. It's taking the difference and putting it in a cap bank. Does that make sense?
Which means that we can, in the future, within the 3-year
Mhm.
period, if we have to go above the cap, then we have a credit to use towards
Right.
that. A credit in the air.
In the
So
future.
this,
Yes.
yeah,
Like a little savings account.
A little one.
Yeah, a little.
3.5%.
green stamps.
All right, may I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 08-2024 on first reading with public hearing on May 2nd, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I neglected to note that the second reading on ordinance number 7-2024 will be on May 2nd.
Correct.
Please, we're noting it now. All right, introduction of the 2024 budget. Just kind of a short statement I'm gonna read. Please pronounce to propose a balanced budget, $8,399,927 for 2024, with a levy of $4,109,615.77. Meets all city obligations through reasonable revenue projections that build fund balance, a balanced approach to the use and restoration of reserves, a conservative approach on spending for operational expenses while staying within the state mandated appropriation and levy caps. Following is a brief explanation of what's being proposed. Revenues, surplus, 2023 operations closed out favorably and above budgeted revenue levels, regenerating more surplus than anticipated in 2023, $250,000. Permitting the city to take in higher levels of anticipated surplus in 2024, $523,000 this year, while maintaining and expanding surplus revenues. Total miscellaneous revenues from local government activities, including parking fees, fines, permits, cannabis sales, interest on investments continue to rise, allowing for a greater offset against expenses needed to provide these services. City continues to share in the mutual benefit of shared services with the borough of Frenchtown, and funding from grants to offset expenses and expand services and interest on investments as a result of improved cash flows and favorable markets. In terms of appropriations, regular operational expenses and salary and wages and other expenses are keeping pace with inflationary trends. All obligations to collective bargaining units and contracts are fully funded. There's also funding for an additional police officer to restore one of two previously eliminated positions and provide additional coverage to reduce overtime as a result of shift shortages from lack of manpower. This budget funds 2024 accumulated absence accruals in the year they are accrued for placement in the appropriate trust accounts for future payments of retirement terminal leave obligations. Plans for various road and storm sewer improvements, public safety vehicle replacement and facility improvements, and general improvements to public buildings is contemplated in the 2024 capital plan projections. For the last year, debt service remains the largest rising factor to the tax increase. This is the last budget cycle where the debt service is on the rise due to higher interest notes that will need to be paid in 2024 for the previous 12 months. These same notes were recently rolled into a lower interest rate 15-year bond. Due to the prudent fiscal practices and restoration of critical reserves, the city of Lambertville has been looked upon favorably by the rating agencies, and as a result received a very favorable interest rate in the April note to bond sale, paving the way for reductions in debt service for 2025 and beyond. Other large expense drivers for 2024 include increases for liability insurance, health insurance, and the city's pension obligations. Once introduced, I invite the public to review the introduced version of the budget and meet with me and the council at a public hearing and a budget explanation session on April 18, 2024 at 7 p.m. here at the Justice Center. At that time, we'll review the budget in greater detail and provide a written analysis for the public. So just to clarify, April 18th is a voting session for us, but we will devote the first hour or so to any additional questions or comments that the council have or the public has about the budget. The second reading and public hearing on the budget will be May 2nd at 7 o'clock. Just a couple of other things here. We did things a little bit differently this year. The council was able to meet with budget consultants, or given the opportunity to meet with budget consultants before the budget was submitted to the state auditor. I believe a couple of the council people have now met with the budget consultant at least 2 or 3 times. So I think that there's been some good access and conversation about those lines. I will have my budget message for the April 18th meeting. It may not be available before then. I'm going on vacation, and budget consultant who has drafted that has been very busy. He's got a job doing this work through our budget. It's not allowed us to kind of complete that document before then. The budget will be posted, and the cap bank was posted tomorrow on the city website.
Correct.
So if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out. I'm actually not answering emails till April 15th, so you might just have to wait.
Yeah.
But it's all there.
Yeah, or if there's a major question, they can always reach out and
That's
we'll
true. Yeah,
put 'em
reach
in
out to Cindy
contact.
and we should get the answer from you for
Yeah.
budget consultant. So given that the public has not seen this budget, I would just ask for a motion to introduce the budget at this time.
So moved.
And
Okay, all in favor of introducing the 2024 budget as presented and amended with public hearing scheduled for May 2nd, please say aye.
Aye.
Those. And motion carries. Thank you.
quick question.
Yes.
The version that is the
user-friendly, the user-friendly version?
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sue's working on it. That should be posted when? We think of next week?
Christy will be here next Friday, the 12th,
Okay,
to review it, so after that, it'll be posted.
okay, so probably a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, as you all, well, we've had several opportunities, Ben and I know that Karen and Evan have spoken to Michael Druris, our budget consultant, who has been, as Michael does, explains things really succinctly and takes our questions that we have to heart and answers them, in the background between certain choices that were made. So I'm really confident that we were able to have those conversations beforehand. I think it's a great precedent that you set, and we'll continue that in the future, because it seems to be working well this year. And it's a lot of information and a lot of pages on both sides of the pages. It's a very hefty document to read. And that's why and thank you for reminding me what it's called, the short version. But that's great that it'll be available to the public early, as well as you can look at the budget online when it's posted. And a lot of good conversations happened during the meeting that Ben and I had, and Karen and Evan had about the budget. So we're quite happy to have input early on this year, and thank you for the council being available and the mayor being very amenable to doing this. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for your participation, and Council President was on the finance team this year. I didn't make all the meetings, but I would certainly welcome people. We can't have a quorum, but I certainly welcome one council member to serve on the finance team year in and year out. And to Councilwoman Kaminsky's suggestion, I think in September, October, we'll begin to look at some of the questions that you have raised this week with Michael. I think that we can start having conversations earlier in the fall than before the budget hearings about priorities, concerns, all of that. So let's continue to kind of build on what I hope is a successful process, or I want it to be successful. I want you all to be involved. There's, as much as possible. So thank you for that, and thanks for keeping me on my toes. I appreciate it. All right, and just lastly on the budget, both Michael Drulis and Christy Ehret, the CFO, will be attending both meetings. They'll both be here on the 18th and the 2nd. Christy, I think they may be participating. Michael will probably be here in person. Christy will probably participate via Zoom. So we'll have them in the room to help us out. Moving on, announcements. I was up at the Hunterdon County Commissioners meeting a couple nights ago. I can't remember what night it was, Tuesday maybe. And I was there for the moment when they adopted grant funding for Holden Park in the amount of $209,000. This is the first acquisition since grant they've given to Lambertville for open space. The first one applied for it, and
Yeah, well, we do pay.
no, I know.
To the county tax.
I know.
So they're get back. Essentially, I love the county, but it's feel like just being totally transparent that people realize we do pay a county, open space tax. That is gratifying, and we got a lot of it back. I'm sure we're gonna all, but we'll come up with another grant.
Come up with another grant. Yeah.
All back.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, I will say that at the commissioners meeting was a fairly perfunctory vote.
Right.
The Open Space Advisory, Parks and Open Space Advisory Committee meeting that I went to with Jackie Middleton, that was passionate discussion, which was nice to participate in. So anyway, I'm glad I invited him down for a stroll in the park, and so
Park outside.
all right, moving on. Wells Fargo parking lot. So everybody's probably read this. I mentioned I've mentioned it before. We have in fact lost the lease there. We've been asked to remove all the parking meters by the release date, which is the day after Shad Fest. We'll probably move them on a Thursday or Friday or Chat Fest. I do not know, not been informed who the new owner is. It's still it's still in contract. I've certainly offered to reach out to that person or that entity. And so we will be moving years from our beloved Portland Rock. To that end, I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna get too into this tonight, but I do want to credit Cindy and Lindsay for beginning a conversation about ways in which we can look at parking in this lot differently. And I don't want to get too ahead of that conversation, but I think by the next meeting, we'll have some ideas. I need to check in on a couple of things. We have a lot of spaces here. And a lot of this, quite a few of those spaces are tied to planning board resolutions, for example, and are not used. So I'm gonna do a little asking around, but thank you guys very much for getting on the ball and starting to think outside the box about ways in which we might increase parking here. There's one or two other ideas that I'm not gonna talk about tonight, but we're working on it, we're mindful of it, and stay tuned.
And Mayor, just one quick thing is, I don't know, I stop down here a couple times a week. This lot is always empty. So if the chamber would do a little bit of advertising, it's only a block for people to walk.
My idea was, and actually I think it's a good one. I just happened. Yes, maybe we put it in, there are signs in the central business district that direct people here, but maybe we just put a big old sandwich board up somewhere, so parking down here, right, and drivers from to see that.
Well, we did attempt to direct parking from
We did,
the North Union Street lot.
Yep.
That there's additional parking down here,
yeah,
so,
we did add signs, but
yeah, but
we're working on it. We're puzzling it out. We're trying to think of ways to increase access and awareness. Just lastly, the sidewalk, everybody's probably noticed that the sidewalk in front of the parking lot is being re-poured tomorrow. The lot, because of the weather this week, was supposed to be poured yesterday. The parking lot has to be closed for 72 hours after the sidewalk is poured. So that means that on Monday, when the school returns, the teachers are gonna have to park at meters, which shouldn't be probably a big deal. It's essentially a pretty quiet day. So just updating everybody there. The sidewalk at the library and front of the lot should be good to go by Monday.
outside both lots.
The library
Right, yeah,
sidewalk, and
yeah.
then the sidewalk in front of the North Union Street parking lot. That one needs 72 hours secure because the vehicles drive over it, so it needs a little bit longer to cure than just a pedestrian sidewalk. Convenience center hours, Saturday, April 6th and 20th from 9 to noon, and Wednesday, April 17th from 5. Just two other quick updates here. Thank you, Council Woman Kaminsky and Jeff Fiddle and Paul Cool, who's here tonight. We sat in a very stormy evening at City Hall last night and worked on the stormwater control ordinance, kind of fitting weather pattern for what we were doing. We made some really good progress, so I'm really pleased about that. We still have more things to do and more things to consider on that, but it was a great meeting, and I thank the councilwoman and Mr. Fiddle for their expertise in with us and the city engineer. Also, there's been interest about the historic preservation ordinance. I spent about 3 hours this week personally working through that ordinance. It's a very complicated ordinance. And I wish I could say I had fun doing it, but I really didn't.
And this is the one in order for us to get our certification.
Yeah, and it's gonna be interesting to see how the community reacts to it. So, it's pretty strict. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what the public feedback is on this. If you remember back in 2021, I was at the meeting in December when we looked at this, and there was a lot of I'm going to call it public outcry about whether or not residents could decide to be not included, right? And they had to get notice and all of that, which is written into our present ordinance. All that comes out. If you're in the district, you're in the district. You don't get a choice.
Since there's a draft, maybe we could see it on the council, since it sounds kind of daunting.
Yeah.
To take a look at it ahead of time before we get into it.
Sure.
Again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to send it to you. Right now, Cindy's just kind of tidied up sort of the formatting stuff. There were one or two substantive issues that need to be resolved. Those are going to have to be resolved between the Historic Preservation Commission and the state. For example, do we want to have an archaeologist? Yeah, is this something that's important? I mean, there are a couple of questions that I think that they need to sort of look at and make some decisions about. I feel comfortable knowing how I would go, but I want them to take it. So we'll get the ordinance to everybody in the council draft, take a look at. I'm happy to ask Cindy to send it as long as everybody understands the draft and for the time being, we're not asking for changes.
So I know you mentioned two subjects, and are you referring to not the stormwater meeting you had with?
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about, not the historic
No,
preservation.
I'm talking about the historic preservation.
Okay.
I've been working on that. Debbie Kelly helped me. We spent an hour together one day and
Mhm.
then I've spent several hours. It's been a lot of cutting and pasting from other ordinances from other communities that already have the CLG.
Mhm.
So some of it's just copying and pasting and changing language to
Mhm.
make it Lambertville. So we're getting there.
Okay.
I feel good about where it is now, and I think that we're not probably too far off. Would the council like to see a draft of that? I'll send you, email it to you, blind copy you. Please do not, at this time, make any comments. We'll have comments. I'm happy to talk to each of you individually. Just a couple of things for discussion and, see how these things go. So, municipal fees. So Cindy and I met with, our insurance company a couple weeks ago to talk about, insurance questions, in terms of city parks. Can we waive them? What's why don't you take a.
Sure. So the question for the insurance company was, people just go to our parks and use them and they can just use them and not have a certificate of insurance. So if you're having a birthday party for your kid, just a regular party, not bringing in anything special, why do they need to have a certificate of insurance? Will they be covered if something happens? And the response was, they're already covered under your insurance for your very general blanket visit, have a small party in the park, use the equipment that's there, covered. If it's a business or if it's a party where they want to bring a vendor in, then we need a certificate of insurance that names the city of Lambertville as additional insured.
This is good, yeah, and this is good news, right?
It's good
Because
news,
people
yes.
want to have parties here, to, put their homeowner insurance out, that's about and send it to us. This is coming at a level of bureaucracy that's.
Right, and if people rent, they may not have the availability of getting, coverage, insurance, a certificate of insurance. So this opens the use of the park up and makes it a little bit more friendlier for our taxpayers and residents.
So good news.
This is good news, yeah, I was happy to hear that, that made me happy. But let's move on to the discussion, so we currently have a $25 use fee and a $250 deposit. I would propose for residents that we, I don't know, did we talk about just waiving this or keeping it at $25 when we talk about it in terms of process?
I don't remember a definitive answer, but there was discussion of waiving it for having a no fee for a resident and a non-fee,
Non-resident.
right. But there was nothing that was definitive.
I'm just gonna go out and say, I like the idea of having no fee for residents. I think that, given how many requests we get over the course of the year, it's not a heavy lift for the clerk's office to process this in Parks and Rec. So that would be my position. And if we wanted to charge a nominal fee for non-residents, that's fair. $25 or whatever, I don't know. Council?
Yeah.
Well, let's come up with a figure that reflects whatever it's supposed to reflect for a non-resident to use the facility.
Well, I mean, this is a question really more for Cindy. I mean, in terms of just process, there's a little bit of work here.
It's really a matter of reserving it on the calendar.
I
So-
would disagree
Oh,
just because
yeah.
it has to appear on the,
Powder.
I would argue that there's a little bit more work involved just because of the refund process. It goes through our hands, it goes to Sue, it comes back, and it's a little bit more involved.
Mayor, the
that's
one
the
thing I would also point out too is if there's no fee, we don't want people just to reserve it and not use it and prevent other people from using it. So sometimes a very small fee discourages that. And so it's not a revenue source for us, but we want to make sure that people who are reserving it are using it.
That people who people, residents and non-residents?
Well, my only concern about not charging a fee for it is if someone reserves it and then they're not going to use it, that's going to prevent other people from using it. And so it's easy to reserve it if there's no fee because they're not going to lose anything. So that would just be my only concern.
So it's a security deposit, so to speak, and if you don't do the event, and don't use it, you get it back?
Well,
Not even
so-
the security deposit, just a small fee, just because you don't want someone to reserve it and the thought that, oh, I may use it, but then they're not going to use it because, you know, they have other stuff to do. If there's a small fee for it, typically that prevents that type of thing from happening.
Well, do we still require a deposit?
I don't think there's any need for deposit.
The other thing that the insurance company asked that we consider is banning the use of any blow up equipment. And this would be the things, you know, that that the bouncy houses and things like that, because that's really where injury happens.
No bounce?
And no
No explosives.
no,
Oh,
no.
yeah, oh, okay, right, yeah.
No, what was the other thing they said? No trampolines,
No
thank you.
trampolines, Yeah,
Yeah, trampolines, those are very dangerous. You know, the school does
Yeah.
use something on Eli Park though with the bouncy stuff. I don't know, you know, I would be okay if there was the bouncy house as long as they had a certificate of insurance for that. But that's a vendor, which I think that's what Cindy was talking about before. Whenever there's a vendor or professional company involved, we would require that.
Well,
Yeah,
but then you get into, suppose someone buys one at Home Depot and they set it up for the event, something happened, so. You know, it's a tough shift.
I don't know, I'm a parent of 3 people, I'm perfectly happy of saying, give them a ball and call it a day, right?
Yeah.
Kids will have fun no matter what you do. So, I just had that vision of a news video that I remember of a bouncy castle actually taking off with a couple of toddlers that, on a windy day.
and I think that was their point. That's why they don't want us to allow that, because it's a liability. And as you know, I mean, we've been sued in the past, and the people who hold the party get sued and we get sued as well. So it's really, you know what? I
Well, we'll
guess
come
like-
up with a list of permitted and not permitted.
Yeah, let's just do that and bring it back to the council.
Okay,
Yeah.
And so it sounds like, I think Councilman Lyons brought me around. Are we comfortable with the $25 fee for residents? Are we not doing any deposit? Is that? We're still doing a deposit?
Right now, we have the fee and the deposit.
Okay,
So this remains unchanged,
Yeah.
this statement in the agenda.
I would think that that would remain unchanged, and the $250 deposit, is that something that we want? I mean, we do have equipment. What if, you know, $250 isn't going to pay to replace a big piece of equipment that gets broke? So is that $250 for a resident? Maybe we don't charge that.
How many
Yeah.
times in the past year have we had to use the security deposit or 2 years?
We haven't had to use a security deposit, and we haven't had a problem with any of our parks going back to 2011 when somebody rented Mary Sheridan Park and dug up all the flowers.
Yeah. I don't think we need it then.
all right, let's try without it.
So I would
Thank
say,
you.
I would recommend that we remove that for resident use and non-resident use, but for businesses that they still make the deposit.
Yeah. Sure.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And just lastly, non-resident use is gonna be $25, or do we wanna make that deal? Okay.
No preference.
Yeah.
Fifty's good.
50.
All right, 15.
All right.
Make it some more motivation for moving into town, an extra 20.
All right. This is exciting. We still have the valet parking ordinance in process, and that's in process because I haven't looked at this the last time I looked at it, my fault. We'll move that along. Okay. Then moving on to correspondence, we have the rate council, Hunterdon Area Energy Cooperative. We go through this.
Following his recommendations, I read it and I thought he made a lot of recommendations as to this energy cooperative. And how they should like fix the bid. And are we Are they doing that
We,
or?
so we participate and
Yeah, so we participate in it, and so they go back and forth between rate council, and so they haven't finalized the packet yet, but they provide all of the commentary for us, so we know.
I know they do, but
Yeah.
is the pack, so you haven't seen it.
No,
yet.
haven't seen it.
The rate council had some great points.
Yeah, I
And
did too.
We're gonna be in this thing.
We did hear from.
He had some
yeah.
very good points.
Yeah,
And since our former rate council is a resident of Lindsayville, I would say that listening to rate council, which is, you could hear this, is a wise thing to do. Because these things get set up and, they're not always, in the best interest of all the citizens. And the rate council advises us to how we can best serve our citizens. So I would listen to the rate council.
I believe they are. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
what-
we did receive something from Lisa Hibbs, but we don't have the final yet. It's really noticed that the rebid is in process.
That's great.
all right, moving on, the Board of County Commissioners has sent a memo out to municipalities of Montgomery County, just touching base on the affordable housing legislation. It's a memorandum, just kind of detailing timelines. It's basically just kind of a how-to for municipalities.
I listed it twice.
That's that's what it is.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna open the meeting up to public participation again. Single supply, we're not going to do the whole spiel.
Paul Stevens, 39 Court, just a couple of quick questions. You mentioned the user-friendly budget was going to probably not be available until like the 14th, 18th, somewhere farther down the line. But you introduced the budget tonight. Is that the introduced budget will be published tomorrow, so people can take a look at it? Okay, that's fine. The other thing is trying to understand the difference between the cap bank and our regular surplus. So surplus has to do with money that's brought in, we don't spend all of it. The cap bank had something to do with if there's a line item in the budget and we don't go all the way up to the, what's the cap bank? What
Okay,
is the cap bank?
Do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Christie's on. We can let Christie respond. Give her the availability.
Thank you, Christie.
Christy, can we tag you in?
Did she?
Coming.
No, she's here.
Okay,
Hi, I'm here.
okay.
Did you hear the question, Christie?
I did not. I'm sorry. I had some stuff going in the background.
All right, Paul, would you repeat your question, please?
So my question is, I'm trying to understand, the cap back.
Cap back.
Versus surplus. Run surplus all the time, but like to run surplus and then we save that money. Cap bank with money we put away for later somehow, is that? Help me out here, understand the difference, please.
So the cap bank ordinance is our appropriations going from 2.5% up to 3.5%. And if we do not use the total 3.5%, we can bank it for the next 2 years if we needed to. It has nothing to do with the levy cap, which is raising taxes. This is just on the appropriation side. So if I give you an example, you can increase your appropriations, but leave your taxes down or it has nothing to do with your taxes. So I know that everybody kind of gets confused because you hear we have a cap on the taxes, but this is not the tax. So I just want to make it clear, this is not that we're increasing our tax levy cap. This is just appropriation. So this is the spending cap. This is something that we do every year, and we have the ability to bank it for 2 years if we do not use the 3.5%.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
Helps a little bit, but it sounds like there's, I need a more in-depth discussion than 3 minutes. So, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And I stand corrected, Cindy, it is 2 years. I'm so sorry.
Anybody
Well, I'm
else?
not sorry, it's not
Forgive
3
you.
years, I think, but it's 2 years.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online? All right, can I have a motion to close the public comment period, please?
So move.
Second.
Thank you. On that, please say aye.
I.
Aye.
Motion- Thank you, Councilman, and a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for adjourn. Thank you for joining us, Councilman Lai. We appreciate it and hope you're having a good time.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I got to come back tomorrow.
This is not raining.
Yeah, you should be able
Wow.
to get in tomorrow.
That's right.
Well, you're coming back tomorrow.
Maybe, not sure yet.